is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Hello and good night, and welcome to The Doctor is In with me, Dr. Dinothra Archer-Kare. Thank you for joining this evening for another exciting show of all things health, wellness, and things that pertain to the Bahamian society. I always enjoy coming here every Tuesday evening with you and just discussing health topics and various topics. So welcome to the show, and thanks for being here. You know, tonight, of course, we're sponsored by Medical Concierge Services for all your medical care needs, whether it be children to adults. We see basically everyone. So check us out. We're on Collins Avenue in the Bahamas Heart Center. All your family care needs. Check out our website, mcsfamilymedicine.com, as well as we're online. We're on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook, you look for Medical Concierge Services, you can find us, as well as Instagram, medical_concierge_services. We do a lot of home care as well. So if you need a doctor to come out, just give us a call, 326-1521. And of course, you can WhatsApp us on our WhatsApp line, 429-4880. And if you call us and we're not there, you can just WhatsApp us and then we can get back to you. Otherwise, you can book appointments with us at any time. And of course, NHI, we're still available for those who want to sign up for NHI. And you can do that on our website, or you can give us a call at any one of our numbers, or WhatsApp us and give us your information, and we can get that all set up for you. So that's not a problem. So tonight we're going to talk about anemia. It's something that comes up quite often. And so for those who don't know me, I'm Dr. D. Archer. I'm a family medicine specialist and a consultant. And I like to talk about topics that, you know, my patients tend to come in with, things that you kind of see common that affect people's everyday lives. So anemia is one of those that's really, really common, especially with women. And we're going to talk about, you know, what are the signs and the symptoms of anemia, you know, when you should get certain things checked out, and, you know, when are things kind of normal. But anemia is not normal. So what is it? It's basically when you lack the red, healthy cells that carry the blood in your body. And so you'll hear a lot of people say, you know, I'm anemic, or I've been anemic, or I have what Bahamians call low blood. And that's what they're referring to, the low red blood cell count, or what you call low hemoglobin, which is a part of which binds the red blood cells and allows them to carry oxygen around the body. So why is that such a problem? So basically, you know, anemia can be something that happens very acutely, where it's temporary, or it can be chronic, where it lasts for a long time. And there's very different reasons why someone may be anemic. And so you want to find out what that is. So I hear a lot of people come and say, I've always been anemic. I've always been anemic. And so I ask them, why are you anemic? That is the question, because most anemias are treatable, quite a few of them, if you find the source of the problem. And then sometimes anemia can be just a sign or symptom of something else that you need to look into a little bit more deeply. And so usually just saying, you know, I'm anemic and kind of going with that, it's not always a good idea. So you want to really find out what is the cause of the anemia. And there are various different types of anemia. There's anemia because of a chronic disease, which we'll talk about. You can have anemias due to deficiencies in the body, certain nutrients that you're not taking in, and that can cause anemia. And that's actually quite popular, and we'll talk about that, because usually persons who come in and say, I've just always been anemic, there's usually a nutritional cause to that. And then, of course, you can lose blood. So what are some of the signs, the symptoms that you may be anemic? And this can vary. You can have very mild cases of anemia, right up to very severe cases of anemia. And when it gets really severe, you can end up in hospital or having to require a blood transfusion. You hear people need blood, and those are for different reasons. Some people may have no symptoms whatsoever and just be found when they're doing their normal blood workup. And in many cases, that's how a lot of times milder anemias are found, because people just happen to do their physical or they do a blood workup and they realize that they are anemic. The doctor will tell you, well, your blood count is a bit lower than normal. So some of the really common signs and symptoms would be fatigue, weakness, pallor, especially if you're fair. And then we as doctors, we can usually tell, but when we look at your mucosa, if you are producing or you have enough hemoglobin or blood, red blood cells in the body, we can tell that by doing a clinical examination and looking at you. Some persons may get shortness of breath, dizziness, or lightheadedness, as well as chest pain, cold hands and feet, headaches. Some people even come in with like palpitations, saying that their heart is beating pretty fast. As you can see, there's lots of links with the heart. And why is this? It's because those red blood cells that are maybe lower or don't have enough hemoglobin to carry the oxygen around, these are the cells that carry oxygen around the blood. So you have three types of cells that circulate in the blood, and those would be first your white cells. These are the ones that would fight off infection, that would kill bacteria. You know, these are your immune cells. And then you have your platelets, which are your clotting cells. So if you get cut, these are the cells that come together and basically stop the blood from flowing. And then, of course, we have our red blood cells that we talked about, and they have what we call a hemoglobin component that carries iron, and that's where the oxygen binds. So to carry oxygen to various organs of your body, your heart pumps this blood, it goes to each organ, and it provides oxygen. So having low blood can actually be pretty significant or important. And if you're feeling really fatigued, or you're having one of these symptoms and it's not going away, maybe a great time to just kind of go and see your doctor to make sure. Because as I mentioned, having low blood or anemia can be a sign for other things. And if it's to the point where you are actually having symptoms, you may actually need to get blood, or you may require blood. So what are some of the causes? I like to break it down into three different areas. But this can also be broken down into two areas, which we consider congenital and then acquired. So congenital causes would be those that you're born with or you inherit. So, you can have that from birth, and we call those congenital issues. Now, the other ones are acquired. These are things that happen over time, and you end up not having enough red blood cells because of this. And what it means is that your body either doesn't make enough red blood cells, or your body breaks them down too quickly such that they're used up quicker than they're produced, or they get destroyed by some means of the other. So you'll find that either your body itself has an issue where it's not producing the red cells, either you're losing the red cells somehow, or they're being broken down easily, or they're just kind of being destroyed, right? So those are the three main causes, and we'll kind of go into what some of those would look like. We talked a lot about what a red blood cell does already, and the fact that it carries around the rich iron proteins that you use. There's some other things as well that red blood cells really require to function properly, not just iron, but also B12, folate, and other nutrients. And a lot of those nutrients come from the foods that we eat, the nutrients that we put into our body. And that's why it's really important to always get a balanced diet, because that is where we get the nutrients to provide the elements that will help oxygenate our blood. And these red cells are produced in our bones, what we call the bone marrow. So just like how the chicken has a bone marrow, we too have a bone marrow, and that bone marrow that reddish kind of stuff that we find in the middle of bones is actually where your red blood cells are produced. So if we were to click your bone and open it up right down the middle, that marrow is really the source of your red blood cells. And you can find that in any of the large bones of the body. So as we talked about, if you have a production issue, it would stem usually from production within the bones. So what causes people to get anemia? There's numerous different causes, and they all kind of fit into one of the categories that we talked about, where you're either not producing, you're breaking down red cells too quickly, or you're losing them from somewhere inside the body. And so the first one, to me, one of the biggest ones and the most common would be our iron deficiency anemia. This is the most common cause, and it's due to the shortage of iron in your body. So this is one of those that's linked usually to the nutrition, what you're putting into your body, or your body's ability to actually hold on to that iron. And your bone marrow needs iron to make hemoglobin, and without adequate iron, you don't have enough hemoglobin for your red blood cells, so your red blood cells then aren't really functional. So you can have all these red blood cells, but you don't have hemoglobin that helps bind the oxygen, so they aren't functioning the way that they should. And without iron supplementation, this type of anemia can happen sometimes in pregnant women. It can also be caused by blood loss. And so you'll find that a lot of women, especially women who are in their menstrual period, young women who have heavy bleeding, women with fibroids, those persons will sometimes be anemic just because of this. And sometimes some medications can also lower your hemoglobin in this way, such as persons who use a lot of pain medication, and this can lead to ulcers and other things, as well as persons that are using a lot of aspirin, which can cause inflammation of the stomach lining and also blood loss. So if you're using a lot of harsh, maybe medications or NSAIDs on your stomach, you can actually have little micro hemorrhages, or you can develop ulcers inside of your stomach, which may also lead to bleeding. And it's important to determine the source of the iron deficiency. So why you are iron deficient. Is it that you're not taking food in? If it's that you're losing the blood somewhere, and because that will lead you to the problem that you can fix. Now, there are other vitamin deficiencies that are related to anemia, and we mentioned a couple. One that a lot of people know about, B12. So your B12 deficiency, you need folate and B12 to produce healthy red blood cells. So you see a lot in pregnant women. We will supplement them. We will give them folate and other vitamins to ensure as they are, pregnant and dealing with having a baby, that they have adequate blood supply going throughout the body. So a diet lacking these things and other key nutrients can cause a decrease in red blood cells and red cell production. Some people who consume B12 aren't able to absorb it properly, and this can lead to deficiencies of anemia known as pernicious anemia. So some people have various other diseases that may be connected, which allows them not to be able to actually absorb some of these vitamins, and they would get special treatment. Those are some of the persons we may be even put on IV supplementation. And so another type of anemia comes from inflammation. So if you have certain diseases, HIV, rheumatoid arthritis, kidney disease, Crohn's disease, and other acute chronic inflammatory diseases can also interfere with the production of red cells. So a lot of the anti-inflammatory and also autoimmune diseases are also kind of linked to being anemic. Anemias are also associated with bone marrow diseases. We mentioned that bone marrow is the area in which red blood cells are created. So if you have any problems that are coming out of the bone marrow, then that's where those would be. So as we look at those, we've got some of our cancers in there, our leukemias, myelofibrosis, Those can also cause production problems with inside the bone marrow and lead to less red blood cells being looked at. So any type of cancer and disorders that can be mild to life-threatening, all can be related to this type of anemia. And so that's why when we see anemia, we don't just leave it alone. We try to investigate what the cause of that is. And there are other things that will be linked to that if it's something like cancer, but that tends to be one of the signs or symptoms that may be related. Then we have our hemolytic anemias. And these are basically a group of anemias that develop when red blood cells are destroyed faster than they can be produced. So something is attacking or destroying the red blood cells. And we call these hemolytic anemias. They can be thalassemia and other hemolytic like anemias where you have the red blood cells breaking down before. And a very well-known type of hemolytic anemia is called sickle cell. We all know about sickle cell. What most people do is when the shape of the red cell is in a sickle shape. Because of that, they are destroyed more quickly. They don't last as long. And so you have this kind of destruction of these cells before they really completed their function and they're not functioning properly. And so therefore, they are being destroyed out of the body before you can make enough. And those persons go through sometimes crisis where they have lots and lots of sickling. And then they have what we call anemic crisis when their blood counts would drop quite a bit. And those persons tend to be, like we said, hereditary. So they're born with sickle cell. They might have two parents who have a trait, or they may have a parent that has a full-blown sickle cell disease. And those persons will always usually be a bit anemic, but they tend to have times when they are extremely anemic and they may need to be in hospital. So those irregular blood cells, they die very prematurely, and there's always a shortage of red blood cells. So those are kind of some of the main ones that, the ones that we commonly hear about that would be affecting whether your blood count is low. And so usually if we see a low blood count, we look for would be linked to these, and then we try to search for what that may be. We'll talk a little bit about the risk factors before we take a break. So what kind of factors would lead to a person getting anemia? Well, number one on the list, of course, nutritional. If you're lacking certain vitamins that we talked about in your diet, such as iron, vitamin B12, folate, copper. There's a copper component. And you're thinking, copper as the element rather than just the metal that you see about, but the copper element is also a part of that red blood cells and helps the oxygen combine. So if you're missing these things inside your nutritional foods that you're eating, then this by itself can cause you to be anemic. And what I find is a lot of people that come in and say that they're anemic, this is usually the problem. It's dietary. So diet. So what kind of things do you think would be in those foods that would be good for a person who's anemic? Well, number one on the list would be, and people don't always like this because I hear a lot of people, usually I can look at someone and I can determine if they eat red meat because a lot of persons have been told over time that, red meat is not healthy. And so they've totally taken out of their diet. They're eating fish and chicken and nothing. And then they're not replacing those sources of iron with any other food. So they're not supplementing correctly. So what they have is they have usually kind of a low grade anemia, usually at about 10. For women, you want to be 12 and above. Usually men are about 13 or 14. For most people who are anemic, just mild anemia will come in above 10. And you'll ask them if they're fatigued, and some will say yes, and some will say no because it's mild. But you can tell from usually looking at them and then later with their blood results that they usually have some type of iron or nutritional deficiency. And so that requires dietary changes, and we talk about that and what it would require to get them back to normal, because knowing the cause is very important. Once you do that, you usually can fix it. So the other one would be risk factor would be any kind of intestinal disorder. So if you have any issues where you don't absorb nutrients very well, such as Crohn's disease or celiac disease, that puts you at risk for anemia. And these are also patients that we sometimes do IV supplementation for. Menstruation, so in general, women who haven't had menopause are at greater risk of having iron deficiency, especially if they're very heavy bleeders. Or I would even put in there women who have like fibroids or something else going on that's really increasing their blood flow. And so iron deficiency, they're more at risk than men, and typically women who are postmenopausal, because menstruation causes the loss of blood. But I would say if you are menstruating and you find that there's a lot of heavy bleeding, usually we can come in and we can talk about what may be causing that. Sometimes naturally some women are heavier with menstruation and others. Sometimes we can do things to change kind of your hormonal shift into a more positive light and kind of make that a little bit easier on you. Just some lifestyle adjustments and changes usually tend to help with that. Pregnancy, we've talked about that, being pregnant, and if you're not taking a multivitamin, of course, you're at risk of being anemic, especially if you're not taking folic acid or iron in as a part of your supplementation. We have chronic diseases such as cancer, chronic kidney disease, and any other chronic disease can lead to different forms of anemia, or what we call anemia of chronic disease. It's kind of a long, lingering anemia that's always kind of there. We see it a lot in some of our kidney patients. All right, and because the kidney is involved as well in this red blood cell production, and so when you have issues with your kidneys, you tend to have low erythropoietin, which is one of the factors needed to produce your red blood cells. So you slow chronic blood loss from ulcers or any other parts of your body that can deplete your iron stores, can lead to iron deficiency as well. And then if you have a family history of one of the inherited conditions, such as sickle cell disease, of course, and other factors such as blood diseases, autoimmune, some acute illnesses, alcoholism. So if you drink a lot of alcoholics tend to have nutritional deficiencies. They replace a lot of their calories with alcohol, and therefore they tend to be anemic. If you had exposure to various different toxic chemicals, use certain medications, we talked about the aspirin and other ones that can help lead to red blood cell loss and also affect the production. And then age, people over the age of 65 are also at an increased risk for being anemic. So we're going to talk about complications, preventions, and then what can we do. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with the doctors and with me, Dr. DeArcher.
The Access Accelerator Small Business Development Center is here to help small businesses throughout the entire Bahamas. To better serve you, we've made it easier to contact us. Call 461-7232, WhatsApp 359-0626 or 359-2394, email helpdesk@spdcbahamas.com, or submit a ticket when you visit our help center at accessaccelerator.org. The Access Accelerator, empowering small business.
The new Guardian Radio app is here. Listen live to all our Guardian Radio shows and live video stream select programs in our studio. Get information about Guardian Radio shows and our hosts. Send messages, text, email, and even call. All from our amazing new Guardian Radio app. Download it free today in your App Store for your Apple device or Play Store for your Android device. The all-new and improved Guardian Radio app.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
welcome back to the Doctors In with me, Dr. D. Archer. Thank you for joining us this evening, brought to you by Medical Concierge Services for all your medical health needs. And you can join us tonight. We're talking about anemia, causes, signs, when to go and see your physician. So give us a call if you have a question or a comment, or if you want to jump into the conversation, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. One more time, 323-6232, 325-4316, 325-4259. So we're talking about anemia, what it is, and basically it can be an acute or chronic problem and where you have low red blood cells in the body. And this can cause various other problems like fatigue and tiredness, shortness of breath. It can affect the way that your heart beats, a lot of different things. Sometimes you have really mild or no symptoms, and you can have severe symptoms in which you require hospitalization, blood transfusion, and other things. We talked a lot about the risk factors and kind of the nutritional factors that are related to having, and then kind of just knowing why you should come in and get that diagnosis, as it can be related to various other chronic diseases. And so some complications of anemia include extreme fatigue, which in severe anemia can make you very tired, and you won't be able to complete your daily tasks. So you'll find that the things that you were able to do, you're not able to do them. You're just really tired all the time. You just feel really down and out. And you can also have, if you're pregnant and you're anemic, and that's why it's important to supplement pregnant women with folate. Folate deficiency can lead to a lot of complications, especially premature birth. It can cause other problems with the baby over even after it's delivered. You can see the malformations and other problems because babies need that folate during development. Heart problems, we talked about the irregular heartbeat, or what we call arrhythmias. So you can have changes in the way that your heart beats. And this is because when you're anemic, you have more blood to make up for the lack of oxygen in the blood. So remember, those red blood cells are organs throughout. So when the heart is sending them out and the organs aren't getting enough oxygen, your brain signals that you need more. So your heart pumps a lot faster, and this can cause strain on your heart and lead to changes in the beat and arrhythmias. And this can even lead to your heart actually getting a lot larger, and it can lead to your heart failing. So you don't want to go untreated for a really long time with anemia, especially something that could be treated very easily. And then, of course, death. Some of our sicklers, they die from their anemia, and it can be other life-threatening complications. Those who are losing blood, they can lose blood very quickly, and older persons are also at an increased risk of death if they're anemic. So how do we keep ourselves from being anemic over time? Well, it comes right back to our diets. So many of our anemias can be prevented. It's very preventable. We talked about some of the nutritional stuff that's involved, and you can basically, by avoiding iron deficiency and vitamin deficiencies, and by eating a diet that includes a variety of different vitamins and minerals, you can usually avoid being anemic if you don't have any chronic problems or issues. So what kind of iron-rich foods are we talking about? This is the key part of it. So like I said, to me, red meat, number one on top of the list. You just need a little bit. So Dr. Archer, I hear a lot of people say, when I say, you need to eat a little red meat. Dr. Archer, I don't like red meat, or I heard red meat was bad for me, or whatever. Most things are good in moderation. So I'm what I call a moderate when it comes to diet. I believe just about anything that's produced naturally, you can eat it, but you want to do it in moderation. So if you're going to have red meat, we're talking about a small cut of red meat. They said the meat should never be bigger than your fist. We tend to go very big in the Bahamas. So you want big, gigantic quarter steaks and all these things and stuff like that. But just a small cut of red meat, a couple of times, at least once a week, a couple times a week, they make a very big difference. Of course, you have, for those who may be vegetarians, they also face a lot of issues with anemia, because with vegetables and with other things, to get the amount of iron that you get in a small cut of red meat requires a large amount, but you can do it. So dark foods are really, really important. Our dried fruits, beans, lentils, and cereals that are already being fortified. These are going to be some of your main sources. So, beans are really, really good. Bahamians usually only eat beans or peas in bean and rice, or those other things. But a lot of other cultures, you'll find that they do eat more beans technically than us. They'll have beans on the side, or they make various dishes out of beans. And so incorporating beans, peas, lentils into your diet can be very helpful, especially if you're not going to eat much or any red meat. In terms of your folate, that can be found in a lot of fruits, fruit juices, dark green leafy vegetables again, your green peas, kidney beans, peanuts, enriched grains, in certain breads, cereals, pasta. That's where you'll find a lot of your pasta of beans. Also, B12. Okay, I think someone is sending me a message on my phone. So I'm live on my phone. So if you could send the message either through the Facebook page or give us a call, that would be perfect for me to take a look at that. The next one would be our B12. Where do we get B12 from? So also meat, really good for B12. Dairy products, fortified cereals, soy products. I'm not a big fan of soy because I like things that are really naturally produced, and soy is, soy. And then, of course, one of my favorites, vitamin C. Foods rich in vitamin C, citrus fruits, juices, peppers, broccoli, tomatoes, melons, and strawberries. These also help increase your iron absorption. So if you have iron into your diet, you tend to want to increase your vitamin C. I had a really interesting patient one time. She was coming up as anemic, and she'd been to a couple of doctors. They couldn't figure out why she was not a sickler. I think she may have had a sickle trait, but she was presenting closer to a sickler and having crisis, and they couldn't understand what was wrong. Now, I started treating her for various other things, and we decided to do a G6PD test. That test showed that she had G6PD deficiency, and that's basically like an enzyme that helps you to digest or kind of deal with vitamin C. So she could never take vitamin C very well. And so this was a part of what was making her anemic. There's certain things that actually trigger G6PD deficiency. So we were able to then realize there that she was getting triggered, or these blood cells were being destroyed because she was doing things that was triggering her G6PD. And so by being able to figure out what the cause was, the lack of vitamin C in her diet was a part of it, but that in itself was being caused because she had a genetic condition, which was where she had this deficiency of not being able to digest vitamin C correctly. And so that was a really interesting case that I had, which was a really interesting finding, and it all came back from a patient who happened to be suffering with anemia for quite some time, and nobody could quite figure out what that was. And she's doing pretty well today. We were able to keep her anemia kind of on the mild side, where she's asymptomatic, because that is a genetic condition, so it doesn't go away. And the crisis have all kind of gone away, thank God. All right, so if you're concerned about getting enough vitamins and minerals from your food, this is where you speak to your doctor about a multivitamin, and specifically about how do you get those specific foods, those specific minerals and vitamins into your body. So what do we do? How do we find out for sure if you're anemic, and how do we then deal with that? So what the first things that we would do after we take your history and we perform a physical examination, we would run certain tests. And these tests would look to see if your red blood cell count, your hemoglobin, and everything was negative. There are different indices on that test would allow us to decide, is it iron deficiency versus something else, or whether we have to do additional testing to figure that out. And so the variant would be to just take a simple CBC, which is a complete blood count, which would look at all of those numbers and would allow us to see if the blood cells in your blood sample, if they are low or high. Okay, so healthy adult hematocrit or blood values are generally between 38.3 and 48.6% for men and 35% and 44.9% for women. Healthy adult hemoglobin values are generally 13 to 16 grams per deciliter and 11.6 to 15 grams per deciliter for women. So men 13, we talked about that 13 to about 16 or so, and then for women 11.6 to 15, and that depends on usually what scale you're using. Usually say about 12, and so you can see your milder anemias would be like about 10 and above. After that, sometimes you become to get symptomatic, usually complaining, and may already know that they are anemic. So the numbers might be low for people who engage in intense physical activity or are pregnant or age. So depending on if you are in a particular category, this may vary for you. And we also do tests to determine the size and shape of your red blood cells. Some of the red blood cells might be examined for their unusual size or shape. So if we find something abnormal or we're not finding the source of that, we would then do further, like what we call a blood smear or different testing to actually look at the cells itself. Additional tests that could be done would be iron studies, would look for B12 levels, folate levels as well, depending. And if we think it's something else that's going on, then we would refer you for different tests, depending if you think it's cancer or something else, or if it's just a nutritional deficiency, you just treat the deficiency. And so those are kind of like what we would do. And so it's very individualized for each person. So if you're feeling that you're having those symptoms, then you really want to come in, you want to get checked by your physician, and you want to see if the reason why you're anemic, because usually there is going to be a reason why you're anemic. So if you have a question or you want to join in 323-6232-354316, 325-4259. Okay, so just want to touch on a little bit more on some of the foods related to that are really high in iron, because I find iron deficiency is the most relevant one. And so we're going to look at 15 of the healthy foods that are high in iron. So your dietary iron comes in two different forms, and this would be your heme and heme. And heme iron comes from animal foods that contain hemoglobin in the blood of the animal. Heme iron includes meat, poultry, and fish. So you can see it is in other sources of meat. I would say red meat the most, but you do get a bit of iron from just eating meat in general. And then your non-heme iron comes from other sources. So for vegans, for example, will get iron in their diet from non-heme sources. And this is mostly absorbed by vegetarians and vegans so that they can meet their iron requirements by eating a variety of plant foods that are going to be high in non-heme iron. Some foods also come fortified with iron, so they will have foods that are rich in iron or made rich in iron. You have a caller? Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, good night, Doc. How you doing?
Good night. How are you?
I'm okay. Hey, Doc.
Yeah.
I don't want to laugh, right? But I hope you got for like people who are like when they age, right? Who get ugly like me.
Who get what?
Ugly as ugly, man, ugly. Let's keep it real.
Oh wow.
I see something like doing an anybody.
No, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So, I would say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I would say just find someone who finds you beautiful, man.
You got to be getting mad. So,
huh?
what is something? I ain't gonna tell you no lie, right? In 2013, right? I got dengue, right? Doc, when I look in the mirror, right? It's feeling so bad, look in the mirror, right? I look to the right, right? This thing in the mirror, look to the right, right? I look to the left, right? The thing do everything I do, right? I look and I cry, right? I say it's ugly, eh? I cry.
Oh,
too,
Lord.
Doc, I tell you, Doc, man.
Oh, man.
Like a ton of bricks, right? I say, boy, you ugly now. I cry, right? Two times I cry, right? Because I cried, like, something in my head, see, but yeah, at least you got it, and all that stuff, right? And I guess that will allow me to go in the public ugly as I is and don't really worry about people looking and laughing and all that. Because I see it's a competition of how you look and you know how healthy you are. Hey, Doc, I see the other day I've been on the beach, right? Eating some food, right? Doc, we gotta do something with these obese people, women, man. I see some two women going in the water, right? They can never get out of the water, man. They're so big. Can't be
boy.
And Doc, like sometime in life, you know, you see where you're going. You see, I know I'm ugly, right? I recognize that, right? And I know my place in life, right? People don't like ugly people. That's understand far in the corner, right? I know my possession, right? But people in life, right? They just consume and they be painful and everything and still walking in the sun. I wonder why you know signs on over 200 pounds doing all that stuff. You need
Oh, my.
you need to be serious with this thing, you know, because how could it be? We have a Ministry of Health and people who say they care about us, but they would allow obese people like talking about who could hardly breathe and hardly pull the trolley, got a hole on the trolley when they go to pick up things and hold on for their life. How could we allow that? We see it's wasting the drug. A person who's an addict, and you see we're killing them, or an alcoholic, you see killing them, and they're right on the side of the road laying down in the mud. People go in the stores, basically the same thing, but they walk in, but they could hardly walk, they could hardly breathe, they could hardly get around. You know, Doc, I sound like I talk about this.
No, you have a genuine concern about the severe obesity in this country, and we are a nation of very big people, and that has been a problem for us because we have a lot of chronic disease because of it. Is something that we should be addressing on a national level. I was glad when they started calling it the Ministry of Health and Wellness, but I would like to see the wellness component. You know, I'm willing to help with that because we really need to focus on wellness, and we have to get our young children involved so that we have an entire generation that's going to be different. If we don't do that, then we're going to be dealing with the same problems in 10, 20, 30 years. And also for the people today, we have to incentivize just that, losing weight and eating healthy and making it cost effective as well, because some people, their diet is just like pasta and bread and rice. And some of them, that's all they could afford.
You didn't say Remy.
Sorry?
You didn't say Remy.
God.
I mean, full of salt and stuff. I tell you no lie, right? And then all the fast foods, right? It's like I think I'm looking for all these rights and things, right? And I think if more women would spend time at home to try to prepare food, things for the family and things. Remember when the family party set up one time ago in the 70s and 80s and before then, when that pot cook and things like that, that part is a monitor who all home, who gone out, because everyone had their share. And their share being the pot, right? And that's a form of
I'm a child of the 80s, so I think we were the last generation to kind of have that feel to it. We were just like at the back end of all of that. But don't forget now, we have a country where 70% of our homes are single women. Most of those women are working. They're the breadwinner. I would say, where are the men to complete that home?
Hey, Doc, that's a good excuse, you know.
No, I'm not saying an excuse. I'm saying the dynamics of our problems are deeper than superficial. I'm saying that they are rooted in family structure and a lot of other things.
Hey, Doc.
Mm-hmm.
Doc, you know, when you're a single parent, right? A parent is single because they want to be single, you know, most of the time. Mm-hmm. Because
I don't know.
Doc,
lots of different circumstances there, and also that goes back to culture and what is acceptable in our culture, right? So that has become an acceptable part of culture that people meet each other. They don't make a commitment. They have children. I mean, sometimes people just have mistakes and people die in certain things. But a lot of part of it is our culture has made it very acceptable to meet a person and have no commitment with that person, be with that person, have a child, and then go your separate ways. If that was not culturally acceptable, like in some other cultures, then we would see more people having proper structured homes. And I'm not knocking it because I came from a single mother home. I'm like an anomaly, right? But my mother was not quite the same because she was already gone off to college, come back, done all these things, and then kind of had. But we don't have that in every single family home. We do have sometimes a lot of young mothers or women who are struggling, those types of things. And so it just makes everything more difficult because they can't afford the foods that they need to give their children. They might be working when they should be cooking dinner. There's a lot of dynamics that are involved in that. And so I find it a very complicated thing. It's a multidisciplinary thing. And I think it needs a national approach because it touches into everything: health, wealth, education. All of those things are all connected to what we as a culture and we as a people accept as normal in our society. But thank you, caller. That was really interesting. We kind of went off the topic, but in a good way, because all of these things are connected. We have a lot of nutritional issues here, and I think that's about education. It's about your environment. It's about the foods that you normalize and eat often. It's about people afford when we're talking about nutrition in this way. So there are lots of things that are kind of involved in why someone can get a nutritional deficiency. Okay, we have another caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, Dr. Archer.
Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. You know, I wish I was something personal I wish I could tell you, like something what you was talking about just now, but I don't want the whole world to know, right? But I was frightened the other day because I have a young baby boy on the way, and I'm going to be 58 in August. And so I realizing that people are saying, like, just touching on what Duncan was talking about, people are for, you know, the thing is, you know, I'm excited, but, you know, of course, at my age, I'm just praying and hoping that, you know, for time and space, and no man can give me that. You understand what I'm saying? Only God. So I'm not going to live in fear of anybody or anything. But as far as health, right? You know, the thing is, I listen to you, and you do a lot of prevention. So healthy prevention, treatment, and then cure, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the cure is the last thing to reach. So in listening to you talk about anemia, right? And then so, because my fiancée has a sickle cell anemia trait. She doesn't suffer from it, but I guess she has the trait. And so as a young man, I always wondered about anemia, and I looked at it. You know, I always think about God when I think about science. You know, I don't forget God in the science. And I said, but God didn't make people with sickle cell. So I look at it like what external factors could induce sickle cell. People don't really understand sickle cell. I thank God for my mom. You know, she wasn't a college graduate, but she went to like vocational schools, etc., and went off like to like little seminars to universities and stuff like that. My dad actually went away to school. So, and books was always around for me to read. And so it's only because of my Grammy, my mother, and my brother who went to St. Augustine's that I really got into reading. And when I sit back and think about it, because the books was always there for me. And so intuitively, I always think, what causes, and then I learned that there's a chromosome dysfunction in chromosome 11, right? From the haploid. So I guess haploid will be what I have, and then the other haploid will be what the female have, and then we'll make the diploid and fertilize, right? And so, you know, the thing is, Dr. D, it's a dysfunction in the chromosomes, and then it causes the cell to morph or change shape, and then as it flows through the body, it lodges and causes pain and all that. Because I actually had a girlfriend who was a nurse, a registered nurse that actually had that, and it used to be painful, and I used to really feel it, so I decided to read up on it. But me personally, in listening, Dr. D, I'm going out of my mind, all right? I don't want to have any fun tonight on the radio, but last week I was trying to get you. I was on the phone for half an hour, right?
Really?
Yeah, and so the producer, it couldn't have been Hollywood, but the producer, otherwise, I believe, was a PSYOPs officer. He might have been going to order not to take the... But I said, Dr. D wouldn't do it to me because I wanted to chime in, but I like the conversation.
I was actually looking for you because I was talking about your favorite topic, and you
but I called, and what happened is, when I did call back the final minutes, it was too late, so I said, well, yeah, this is always another week, right? But, you know, I'm full of information, and I'm full of hate towards people. Listen to me. I'm full of hate. People are lying to the masses.
Don't be full of hate, man.
Yeah, but Dr. B, listen to me. I only have one life to live. I love my people. I represent the sheep and the pasture. I'm a Rasta. Then you listen to what I'm saying is, be all of our individual lies and untruths. But when you come on the radio and the masses hear you and you deceive the masses, I look at you as being the devil, nothing else. Because I have no reason to deceive anybody. Now, I have to give myself credence because, it hurts my heart, really and truly, for disinformation, misinformation, mass, whatever, to be distributed amongst the sheep. And I've even heard people the other day call the eye open and said, I just call people dumb and this and that. I never call anybody dumb on the radio. I said bookless, ignorant. We all are ignorant. I'm ignorant. That's why I like to read, because I realize the extent of my own ignorance. But how many times on your show when you say going too deep, I say people can understand it. I believe you all have the same. What's the size of the human being?
It's not about that. Sometimes you try to cover a lot in a very short period.
Yeah, that's why I like conversating with you, because you could guide me and then even like correct me in some instances and that slow me down and make me stay in the right direction, because one thing drift me off into the next, because my mind is full of info that I would like for people to really know and take note of. But I'm disappointed in the Minister of Health, all right? I don't even want to talk about it, but someone was telling me, a friend of mine was telling me, this vaccine paradigm is still being upheld. And I was wondering, I think if I was living in the States, I used to try to get a lawyer. I want to sue some of these fast food restaurants, Because, Dr. D, I'm vexed because if the science was to go to court, the factual science, right? I could actually sue these restaurant owners for violating my civil rights. And I want people to boycott them. I don't eat from out anyhow. These fast foods, these are fast death, all right? And then so, what most people don't realize is, Dr. D, I'm vexed, because this is only one life I have to live. And this vax versus unvax paradigm is really turning too serious, right? Based on pseudoscience. But the thing is, I love pseudoscience, right? You know why, right? You know why I love it, Dr. D?
Why?
Because it causes real science to come out. And without pseudoscience, we wouldn't arrive at real science. You see me?
Well, I think pseudoscience is in the way, because right now you have a lot of pseudoscientists with power, which is causing the problem, right?
Yeah,
because
yes.
If you still don't understand that vax or unvax, you can catch and spread COVID, and you're creating policy based on that.
Census paradigm, a very, very census paradigm. It's a very, 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 very census paradigm. To see politicians upholding such a lie, right, is hurtful for me. I never wanted a son, but God give it to me. Hopefully it will come, and I guess it's a way for me to show me something, and for me to really see myself instead of having two daughters. But I wasn't weak to say, well, I need a son to carry on the name, a slave name, right? Because my mind is big. I'm not simple. I didn't come on this earth to be simple. And I'm vexed with humanity for being, listen to me, Dr. D, they into getting rid of people like me, who in the 50s, who have grown up without the science, or without the being engrossed and my mind funneled by technology and the computers and digital space, right? And so now they into because the new generation born into they're already trapped. They're done gone. And so what happens is now, we spoke about sudden adult death syndrome. Of course I'm vexed. You saw the Gardner lady followed, the police followed, the church members followed, and this sudden adult death syndrome. Dr. D, what's going on? What are they trying to tell me now, man? I supposed to be ignorant?
What they're trying to tell you is that you should ignore what you're seeing before your eyes. I think this past 2 years has been an insult to our intelligence.
Yeah, but especially me and you, people like me and you, and all the other doctors, them who in the optimist group and et cetera, et cetera. But God help us all, Dr. D. I don't know what to do. I'm vexed. Yeah. I'm angry.
I think don't get angry. Don't get vexed.
Every day.
If you're a spiritual man, keep that going. Keep strong and keep.
Yeah, but God want me to fight and speak the truth. But Dr. D, I appreciate that.
What we need is just constantly people who are open to the truth.
Yeah, but Dr. D, sometimes the truth is right before our eyes.
The truth is going to come out because, after a while, even some of the most staunch persons who are.
I want to clear this before I go, Dr. D.
Pro-jab, are realizing that maybe they went a little bit crazy. So I think what we're going to see is that things are going to balance back out, right?
All right, before I go, right, I want you to do me a favor as I'm a fan of yours. And I met a fan of me and yours the other day by a friend. Okay. And so I was having this conversation, and he said, he said, oh, this sounds like 52. You see? Now, he didn't know me, but he know my friend. And so he big us up. But the thing is, I wanted to hear the book written by Dr. Eleanor McBain, The Poison Needle, Vaccination Truth Suppressed. Well, that's the name of the book. I just got it a couple of days ago. So I haven't even started to read it, but I had ordered it months ago. The Poison Needle, Suppressed Facts About Vaccinations, right? Dr. Eleanor McBain. I really would love for you to read that book. I ordered the book Viral, Anna Chan, the Harvard professor. So, and it's so rich. So these are the things that I'm into. And of course, some information from the Epic Times discuss Dr. D. Everything I was talking about for the past 2 years.
Eleanor McBain, right?
Yeah, Dr. Eleanor McBain. I don't know if you see on Facebook, but I can send it to you. But you should know this.
Yeah.
The Poison Needle. But she has 3 books. 2 is actually impossible to find. Swine Flu Expose, and another one. But this is they don't want you to read it. Boy, and the guy in the bookstore couldn't believe how excited I was, right? And I realized, then as I realized how much I love books, because not love books, but the books that I really want. I couldn't believe. I was ecstatic when I found that he had it, and he said he had it for a couple of weeks, but he was calling me when I would answer the phone. But I'm so
you got
busy in
like
the
20
shop.
seconds.
Yeah.
Pull it all together. We're about
Keep
to
it together, and Dr. D, read the book for me, please, because I want someone else to know that. Thank you.
All right, I'll take a look. Thank you, 52. Always a great contribution. Thank you for calling. Yeah, we missed your call last week. But we all need to kind of look out for ourselves. Get your physicals, get a doctor that you feel really, really comfortable with, that you can talk to and ask questions to, and take care of yourselves. That is the most important part of it all. And with that, we're going to end the show. So I want to thank you for listening. If you have any questions or you want to you need to book an appointment with the clinic, medical concierge services, give us a call, 326-1521 during the weekdays, and we'll get back to you as shortly as we can. Thank you all for listening. We'll have another exciting topic next week with me, Dr. D, on The Doctors In on Guardian Radio 96.9. Good night.